But having Alec around me and the other guys was really good because it made you kind of share issues and share problems. Yeah, being open, being inclusive, thinking about planning, discussing today for tomorrow, not really bothered about days off, but just getting stuff done was really important. And Alec in particular was very good at throwing some bits at me to kind of keep me motivated, inspired, and less frustrated and worried to shit. But between us, we began to look at this whole regionality and the whole thing about the country. I don't mean the country as in we're in England, but as in Brighton and Sussex, and the whole thing about having Kent nearby, and then the Englishness and the sea and the land and the rivers and the moors and the skies and the farms. And we showed a lot of interest in little establishments and other chefs. When I say other chefs, it wasn't like nowadays where everything's kind of blown up and it's all TV and, bicycle pumped with PR. This was just about people that did good cooking. So then we discovered the English white wine, and we then began to talk more about seasonality. And of course that mangled into Roger Verger, and it was all about nouvelle cuisine and light food and not using flour. And then we began to play with things. So we put more of our own dishes on the menu, some which worked and some which didn't. I mean, the whole thing about home in those days was a lot of Jewish people. I don't care who's who, but that we had to learn kind of some tough ways of balancing the menus out. But the good thing was no one gave a shit about what menu we put on or how we ran the kitchen, as long as we kind of improved and we got better and there's some stability. And then as time went on and weeks gone on, we got better with the banquets and the functions, and the complaints stopped. And again, we got more of the people involved, and Sammy was kind of grinning every day and looking at this, and he'd found that, and he'd unearthed this, and this allocation wasn't put through, and the amount of money wasn't happened. And we got to the bottom of the stock takes and what was wrong with the stock take and what hadn't been counted and what did. And then we kind of said, right, we're going to do stock take every single week at a certain time, and there'll be one person doing it with a witness. We're going to throw the stock sheets away. And we then I think he declared, financially, that the whole of the stock taking and the financial results from the food GP and margins was null and void. And that we had to start again with a complete stock sheet regards the kinds of chocolate and the volume of chocolate and the percentage of chocolate and the size of the box of chocolate. And then that got us onto suppliers. And I think we had 47 suppliers. Well, at least it could have been 50, which is a far better number. But what was that about? So you began to think, I'm sat on this kind of volatile situation regards staff. We've got issues with regards there's no process, systems, procedures of how we operate with wages and whatever. Alec and I were getting further into this kind of, we're going to be English, we're going to do lighter food, and we're going to have a go at stuff. Him and I were not really kind of banquety kind of experts, but we managed to get through that. And the thing began to move at speed. As the months went on and the better and the worse it all became, it was all about learning. And we produced some pretty good food, and we learned an awful lot about stuff and about the region. But this thing that him and I had about English white wine and about what you could do with it and about cooking from the region, and even though I was pretty pro-French and every bloody word I used was French, you began to think there's a future in being what we are and being British and English and UK-ish. Is that a word, UK-ish? And Great Britishness. And that whole thing. And why the hell are we doing that lot? Well, speak our own bullshit. Speak our own languages. I remember, we had one or two other laughs. And you had to have laughs. It was important. I lived in. And everybody else lived in. And some of the tricks we got up to there were really interesting. Like, for example, Nick had come back one afternoon having been downtown on his day off with his sunglasses on and saying, are you well, and all the rest of it. Because this guy he was so trendy, it was unreal, If he'd been covered in sludge or bloody dog so-and-so, he still would have looked cool. I mean, Nick was. Anyhow, we managed to get into his bedroom and took the hinges off the door, and we went off and then put the door to his room in the bin area. And when that was in the bin area, then everybody emptied the content of his room. But it sounds very cruel, but actually we didn't really have a lot of anything, and we all used to do the most horriblest things to each other. But it was done in the best of spirit. So Nick had to go to sleep at night with no bedroom door, and we all used to come in and play tricks on him. But then he would do equally bad things back. But there were two things, so two stories. One I never forget was at the back entrance to the kitchen at kind of Lansdowne Place, in that area where where it was, where you have to go left and then right, and then there was a lot of cars parked up, and the chefs had parked, and there was half the bins everywhere, was a rather bizarre looking building. Now we worked out, or there was always rumours about what the hell happened within this building. And this building had lights on 24 hours a day. Anyhow, it came to pass that this building was actually a sex shop. Not selling sex, but actually selling items in boxes for sex, or things you'd use for sex or with sex, or have a nice day with sex type of stuff. So Nick rocked up one day in this white Ford Fiesta, and he'd fitted to this Ford Fiesta a horn. So whenever he went out, or whenever he came back, he would set off this bloody horn, which really made, you could hear it when you were doing a prep in the kitchen. It was like, this made us all pissed off. So we got a piece of rope and we fastened it around the back of the Ford Fiesta, and around the sex factory shop thing that people put building things in and putting them in boxes and selling, we fastened the rope from the back of his car around the fence to the sex shop. Now, he was going to go back to Halifax, so he was going to be up in the morning, or was he? No, actually, I think he maybe did a long shift and then tried to bugger off at 9:30, because he was kind of, I'm off back. So it was a bit dark, and we heard the and then a whole load of horrific noises. And then a lot of shouting and screaming and yelling, because this sex shop thing was open 24 hours a day. And what happened was, I don't know how it happened, when he drove off at speed in his white Ford Fiesta, he ripped the whole of the sex shop fence out of the ground and dragged it along with him. But the next story, I'll tell you a bit later.